Sadistic Penguin Studios presents the At the Show podcast with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
And Tony Chalsa Barrett.
I don't know this industry jargon, YP, MP, whatever, okay? All I know is that I cannot get a record contract. We cannot get a record contract unless I take these tapes.
It's almost time, so grab a drink, get your popcorn ready, and join the film discussion with two guys from Chicago talking movies.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the At the Show podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tom Yumper Garcia, and I'm with my other co-host, Tony the Sugar Baggy Bird. How you doing, my man?
Doing great. Great to be back. Another Friday. Great to be sharing these awesome movies with you tonight. How are you, my man?
I am good, my friend. Very, very good. We had some history today. Before we get to the movie talk, we're going to talk some a little baseball, and
Quasimodo predicted all this.
With the White Sox losing 121 games to Detroit Tigers. I know people were laughing that they didn't do it here in Chicago when people were going to games, but they decided to do it on the road. So,
well, congratulations, Chicago White Sox. Thanks for, we could go on forever, but that's not why we're here.
Yes, sir.
He gone!
But,
great clip right there. Great clip.
We got a action-packed show for you today. We're going to be discussing The Matrix, which was released 25 years ago in March, and they're going to be having a screening, I believe, within the next month of The Matrix in theaters again to accommodate the 25-year release. Tom, before we even get into the breakdown and everything, what do you think about, The Matrix today?
To be frank, I watched a middle schooler today 5 times pretend to do what he called the Matrix, where he went back. And I sat blown away because I was like, the Matrix. But that's how I get. There are memes of it. There are GIFs of it. It is all over the place. And the movie, honestly, as far as important goes, it seems to be pretty important because a lot of people always talk about it, especially that original one.
Yeah, it's revolutionary in terms of the way it's a culture changer. It brought on parodied so many times and everything. The clothes, I guess, the style they wore became a big thing back in the 90s. It basically propelled the careers of the Wachowskis. Yeah. Keanu Reeves became a megastar even more than what he was. It's still holds up 25 years later. I'm looking really, really forward to getting into that, in more deep detail. And we got some cool stuff that we found when doing research for it. But with that, Tone, let's get into what we've been watching this week, my friend.
That's a meme. And also, what were you just watching?
What were you watching this week, my man?
All right, to continue to prepare myself for the amazing holiday that will be daunting us in October, I got started with another one of my favorite ridiculous classics here, and that is the 1996 Thinner, Stephen King's Thinner. And first of all, when I saw this with a group of friends. I even think we got in trouble from going around the school and doing this right here. We would just go up to people and be like, "Thinner," not big, just anybody. It wasn't like something. It was just funny because the way he sounded and said it in that movie. But again, if you are not familiar with this movie, it is about a man who accidentally kills a Romanian woman and is cursed by the woman's father to rapidly lose weight to a point of, well, extinction. It is a very, very, I think, light horror movie, in my opinion. It isn't very deep. It is only 90 minutes long. I always remember this because at River Oaks, me and those same friends saw this in High School High, the John Lovitz spoof movie. It was the same night. We fit them both in because they both were an hour and a half. So it was like, got there at 6:30. We were already done by 9:30. But Thinner is one that I always put on, especially because it's very mindless. What do you think of Thinner?
So two thoughts. First thing is, I'm always the guy who's like, "Oh, the movie is better than the book," and in certain aspects, well, the book is better than the movie. In certain aspects, that is true. The main character in the movie is not as likable as he is in the book. You feel really sorry for the guy in the book, but the trade-off for that is the character of Richie the Hammer, played by Joe Mantegna, in the movie is way better than the book. In the book he's good, but in the movie Joe Mantegna makes it so much better. Just for the way he acts, and like he's like, they'll remember me, Richie the Hammer. Me and my brother still talk about it sometimes. Just my brother's a big King fan, so am I, and we just quote that Richie the Hammer quote all the time when he says it. Also, the funny part of the movie is the white man from town that they call him. What are you gonna do, white man from town? It's actually a really underrated film. I actually enjoyed it when it came out, and I still watch it here and there when it's out.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I like the movie. Probably, I don't even know if I should say more than I should because the first time I saw.
Ooh, he froze. The first time he saw what? Yeah, you're watching him on the screen right now. His mouth is like wide open. Um, but well, I can just go next. I'm gonna start talking about what I watched this week, and one of the films I watched this week was the 1997 film, The Crow, City of Angels. Are you good? Back
Am I
to
back? Am I
Yeah.
back? Yeah, I thought I heard you talking. I'm here, but I'm just not literally here. But now I'm back. So
Okay. You
okay.
were. We can hold off on my movie. You were saying something about the thinner.
Yes, again, just the way the ending of the movie, I really enjoyed the way the ending was. The way if you have it, I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but the ending of it is a very awesome ending with the pie and leaving it behind. Well, check out that movie. My other movie, really quickly here, is am I frozen again? No.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm
Okay,
just
okay.
laughing at
You
you know
laughed
that's
'cause
coming.
I'm always waiting with the wind out there. It's really, really windy. But Wonderland is my other movie that I picked. Like we always talk about, I love mobster slash uh, Boogie Nights slash anything that has to do with an underworld slash, well, true story sometimes. Val Kilmer in this case. But Wonderland is a true story. Came out in 2003, directed by James Cox. If you are unfamiliar with his work, he has done this movie called Straight A's, Billionaires Boys Club. But this movie here, I really enjoy because of its grittiness. It is the true story of a piece of John Holmes' life after the part that everybody knows him for, which is the porno part. This is like the after part where he is unfortunately really, really down in his life and on his luck. But that being said, I really like Josh Lucas in this movie, Dylan McDermott. Here's a part of the movie that I actually gives it a little bit of the art that the movie kind of portrays. And if you were watching it, kind of like that whole scene, they rob this huge person who honestly is played again by Eric Bogeshin. I can never pronounce his name correctly, but that gentleman in this movie does an awesome job. Um, just a really by a lot. Kate Bosworth does a great job. Lisa Kudrow, which you wouldn't ever think in a movie like this, plays his first wife. Very interesting story. I find it to be very awesome because Val Kilmer, it's one of his like last super awesome performances. Have you ever seen this one yet?
Yes, the fact that you said it's one of his last super awesome performances. Unfortunately, Val Kilmer has the throat issue. Yeah, and his voice is basically gone. Uh, and it's unfortunate because he's a very very good actor. He's very. This is a film. You described it perfectly, saying it was like Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights is based off John Holmes, who's the porn star that Val Kilmer plays in this film. But this is more of a detailed retelling of his life. This is a movie that MSS would really love.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Those are good picks, though, man. Thinner and Wonderland. They're two totally opposite films.
You know what I do is I sometimes I do multiple things. What I'm watching, sometimes what I'm going to be watching, what I've watched a lot of. I walk over to my thing and I'm like, what am I going to watch this week? And I look at the juxtaposition to present to the audience. Thinner and Wonderland. You wouldn't usually watch them back to back, but I got to get my Halloween in, and I got to get my whatever you would call Wonderland, I guess. A very interesting look. What I like the movie one last time is about Dylan McDermott, like when they're retelling the story, Val Kilmer is telling like his version and McDermott's telling his version. And like in McDermott's version, Val looks like a sleazeball because he's acting like a sleaze, but like in Val's version, McDermott's the sleazeball. Like just really good acting. I always like that when they do that. But what have you been watching, my man?
So I was explaining when you did your little fade out into the sunset, you
Yes.
whispered with the wind, you faded with the wind.
Yes.
I watched The Crow, City of Angels. Now, I did do a review on the new remake of The Crow, and yes, it's a remake, it's not a sequel. When it came out a few months ago, and for some reason I saw this on Paramount, I believe it was there, and I decided to, watch it while I was doing some work. And I have to be honest, I really enjoyed this film. It's not great, don't get me wrong, but even though it does try to be a lot like the original, it had two things going for it. The cinematography looked awesome in terms of the dark, the way it was shot. It had three things going because it had Iggy Pop in it, who I told you my favorite line when he meets the crow, he calls him Bird Dick, which made me laugh. And three, it had a kick-ass soundtrack with Filter, Iggy Pop was on there, Hole was on there. I actually added it to my playlist just because I was listening to it when I was wondering. It also got Thomas Jane in there.
You should have added it a lot sooner because I did it on this show about like 20 episodes
yeah,
ago.
but I
Just
added
kidding, I'm kidding. I'm
songs.
just busting
I had
chops.
songs to it, but I didn't add the full thing. I noticed that because I was listening to the Filter song. But Thomas Jane's in there as Nemo, which cracked me up. Tui Trang's in there from, if you would know her from the Power Rangers, she was Yellow Ranger. Unfortunately, she passed really young. And then just reading about it, how the director Tim Pope basically disowned this film because Harvey Weinstein, cough cough, wanted this film to be more like the original, and they wanted to do their own thing. But unfortunately, they made more like the original. So it makes me think like what they could have done with the actual film if they had their own way. It's not horrible, but I would say it's better than the remake.
Yeah. Oh, right around the same time as I saw Dinner at the theater, I remember seeing this at River Oaks, and I didn't see the first one at the theater. This is actually the only Crow I've probably will ever see at the movie theater at this rate. But honestly, I walked out thinking it was a pretty good movie. And as you stated, the soundtrack was really, really good. And I could see why, honestly, just to wash your palate after going to see that last movie, why this would be something a little bit wanting to revisit. And it's not a bad revisit.
Yeah, and the other film I watched was actually goes hand in hand with the directors of the Matrix. Matrix was written by the Wachowski twins, and it's directed by James McTeague, and that's V for Vendetta. This film, I hadn't watched it in a while, and I saw it and was like, okay, I want to pop this in, and you know, without spoiling it, because I think even though it was made 20 years ago, I highly encourage you to watch it because it's beautifully shot, and Hugo Weaving steals the movie for me. You do not never see his face, but his mannerism, his dialogue is just so well done. Um, it's an excellent movie. It talks about anarchy and how basically what's going on in the political system. And he is basically a person that is after that models himself after Guy Fawkes, who in history was a revolutionist and abolitionist, and they're going against a bad government. And John Hurt plays the bad guy. You have Natalie Portman in the film. Great job by Stephen Ray as a detective, and Rupert Graves as well as Stephen Fry as one of her friends. It's based off a graphic novel. I know there's differences between the two, but I really, really enjoy this film just for you know Hugo Weaving for the most part, and then also the way it's shot. What do you think about this one, Tone?
Honestly, this is one I've never seen. I've always put it on the back burner. I don't know why. Well, later we'll get to why, probably. I think it may be the sequels of the Matrixes, but we'll get to that later. But I've never really visited this one. I love Hugo Weaving. I've always wanted to. I mean, I guess in one way or another, I kind of feel like this.
Every day I can't walk, I can't hum. You know? Go ahead and kill me, you.
But yeah, I guess I got to check this one out because honestly, your description of it definitely sounds awesome.
Yeah, definitely check it out. It's definitely worth it. I took a blue pill 4 hours ago. I'm still hard. Should I call my doctor? Yes, Sam, you should. You should. And that's the kind of comments you get during live chat, folks. But Sam's the man. But that's what we've been watching this week. Let us know what you've been watching in the comments on the Twitter or X or whatever Elon wants to call it next week when he needs money, or on Facebook. Check us out at Sadistic Penguin Studios, or you can hit us up at our handles at Lil Yumper and the Hookup on Music or the Sugar Baggy for Tony. But we have dove into what we were watching. And before we get into the main event, just want to say a shout out to a phenomenal actress that passed this actually today. And that's Maggie Smith. She passed away at the age of 89 years old. Brilliant, brilliant British actress. You might know her mostly from, I guess, more recently would probably be Harry Potter, where she played the role of Professor McGonagall. But she was in Downtown Abbey. She's won an Oscar and was nominated for 3 others. Phenomenal actress. She lived a full life, 89 years old, but 2 big, cinema stars in the past month with James Earl Jones and her are gone. And like Sam says, a true GOAT. Any Maggie Smith memories? Yes,
Hook.
Sister Act, yes.
Hook. She's in Hook too. I mean, again, you could just make those 2 movies and I think you'd be like, wow, you're awesome. You're the coolest ever. But yeah, I mean, a full career.
Yeah, phenomenal actress. So condolences to her and her families. Pop in a Maggie Smith film. Sister Act's a good one to go to. It's pretty funny if you want to see her.
Definitely.
But we just wanted to, pay homage to her before we went into our main event, Tone, which is The Matrix. Now, we already talked about the first time we saw it. My wife and I watched The Perfect Couple again. It was better the second time. Yes, very good film. Man, Jack, very good film. So we already talked about when we saw The Matrix. And, the first time we saw it, without even giving any further ado, let's just go straight into it, Tone. Let's go into the development of this film.
In my thoughts, I use the technique of positive visualization.
So, Tone, this film was actually a concept in the 1990s by the Wachowskis. In 1991 to 1993, I'm gonna give you guys a timeline, a little changing up a little bit here. The Wachowskis were then comic book writers and began capitalizing The Matrix. They were writing a screenplay for it. It was influenced by cyberpunk literature, anime, and philosophical works. They drafted an ambitious, dense script. Early drafts were influenced with films like, works, mostly like Neuromancer and Ghost in the Shell. Not the Scarlett Johansson horrible film, but the actual comics and graphic novels, Ghost in the Shell, the anime, which is awesome if you haven't seen it. In 1994 through 1995, the script started to take shape. The Wachowskis sold their first script for Assassins, a Stallone film with Banderas, to Warner Brothers, and that kind of built up a little relationship they had with Warner Brothers. They started to pitch The Matrix, but it was kind of being looked at as, I don't know if we want to do it. In 1995, they worked on a revision of the script to make it more accessible to a wider audience. And at the time, their concept was deemed too overly complex by studios. Would you agree with that tone? Like how complex the story is for The Matrix?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even myself seeing it in the theater for that first time, it was almost like I left going, "This was awesome," but man, what was this? It's heavy.
Yeah, I think of that too. But then I think like Dune was released in the 80s. So,
That's true too.
I
This
mean,
there is the flip. I do understand that too.
but, in the mid 1990s, studios continued to reject the film's screenplay and revisions of it. The Wachowskis shopped the script around to various studios, but it was constantly rejected due to its high concept and complex storyline. Studios were wary of the film's budget and unconventional narrative. See, it was never the actual story. I think it was just the budget. They're like, "Oh my god."
Well, whatever. Just from me watching, you ever see these? I hate to look at a movie like what's the one with Travolta, Battlefield Earth. I mean, that movie cost okay, that movie cost a lot of money, and you put a lot of money into something. You're saying to yourself, am I going to get the return? I mean, Battlefield Earth, $44 million on a project that didn't even gross $30 million, and you got to wear that costume the whole time. Ridiculous.
Yeah. I that movie was horrible.
It was real
Definitely.
bad. I mean, that's not even like a fun one to watch. That's like, oh God, this is awful.
My uncle, I was at my uncle's house, my uncle and aunt's house, and he rented that film just so we can watch it to see how bad it was.
Oh,
And I remember him eating Doritos and watching it and being like, "This is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life."
Barry Pepper's in it too. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not anything bad about Barry Pepper, but oh man.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Many Hollywood studio execs passed on the project, claiming virtual reality sci-fi was bad business. And the reason for this was they were citing a film called Johnny Mnemonic, which is what Keanu Reeves starred in a few years ago as one of their examples of why they wanted to take a deep dive into this and pay for it, which I can understand. Again, studios are there for money. And, in 1996, to help sell the concept, Wachowskis collaborated with comic book artist Jeff Darrow and conceptual designer Steve Scroat to create a detailed storyboard visually illustrating the action sequence, which I think is smart. So they're kind of making a pitch, not just with their screenplay, but they're showing visual effects of it. Uh, Finally, in 1997, Warner Bros. Became interested, but was still unsure about it. The studio agreed to a budget of $10 million to produce a smaller scale film. However, the Wachowskis requested more funds for the full vision. To secure this, for a bigger budget, the Wachowskis took some of the initial money to create a short film demonstrating the groundbreaking special effects, particularly the bullet time effect. Now, if you're a fan of John Woo, the bullet time effect was in The Killer and also in Hard Boiled with Chow Yun Fat, which is an Asian cinema and Asian cinema history. So I will always give him the basic founding father of bullet time. Then, of course, if you play video games, that came into Max Payne, which became a big part of that. And then, of course, now The Matrix is known for it. Uh, when in the early stages of developing what was to become the famous bullet time sequence, visual effects supervisor John Greta and director of photography Bill Pope constructed many gimbals and dollies in hope of creating the effect the old-fashioned way. The original dolly they created for the camera would be led around the action at tremendous speed. But after many failed tests and broken dollies, they opted for computer graphics, which meant writing an entirely new program for the effect. Kind of ironic that the Matrix needed a program for the Matrix. But however, the bullet time sequence does still use one very old-fashioned technique, still photography. This demonstration they did convinced Warner Brothers to back the film with a $63 million budget.
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
Jack says the movie was like first John Wick. I basically watched with my jaw open. It was amazing, both visually and with the premise. Yes, Jack. So now they have their money. They have, the right. Their movie's gonna get made, and they want to direct it. But Warner Bros. Is like, you wrote it, but we don't know if we want to let you guys direct it. Before the Wachowskis were confirmed as directors of The Matrix, Warner Bros. Was cautious about entrusting such a high concept, big budget film to relatively inexperienced filmmakers. The Wachowskis had written the screenplay for Assassins, like we said, but they haven't had a track record as directors of large-scale films. As a result, the studio considered offering the project to more stable directors. Uh, Directors like James Cameron and David Fincher were reportedly among the names initially considered for the project. However, these directors were either unavailable or uninterested in taking The Matrix, as the script's complexity and the combination of philosophical depth with action made it challenging to basically film. It's kind of weird that James Cameron and Fincher considered it challenging to film because their stuff is basically out there. Like Cameron with Terminator, Aliens, his concepts of things, and then
Yeah.
Fincher, Seven, even Mindhunter.
Well, now we're talking though. I mean, 7 Fincher's a lot different than Fincher now, but Cameron I could see because of the technology that was being used in Terminator 2. This whole thing would be more of, I think, can you pull it off, like visually, technologically wise, and honestly, this could have been a great. Who knows? Maybe we never would have got avatars, and we would have got like 10 Matrixes if James Cameron would have did this. Can you believe that?
That away like 50 years. After several rejections, Wachowskis persisted to prove their directional capabilities. They made the movie Bound in 1996, a tightly plotted neo-noir thriller. This film's success demonstrated their skills and convinced Warner Brothers that the Wachowskis were ready to take on the big boys, do The Matrix. And they were eventually given the right to do so because of success of Bound. So they had to prove themselves, and luckily they did. So they are now named directors of their own screenplay. It's a dream come true for them. Now they have to get to the casting tone. And for the role of Neo, aka Mr. Anderson, aka Thomas Anderson, there were some actors considered initially. Will Smith, most famously, was offered the role, but turned it down due to a lack of understanding of the complex script and its philosophical underpinnings. Another thing too was he felt that Neo wasn't the main focal point of the film, and I'm like, you didn't read the script because he was the main. His name literally is the one. And Smith later admitted that he didn't grasp the film's concept and chose to work on Wild Wild West instead. I don't know if you've ever heard the
Wild Wild West, Jim West, Desperado. I'm sorry, that song's been in my head since 1997 for some unknown reason.
But have you seen Kevin Smith talk about the Wild Wild West?
No, but I bet that's a good watch.
So just to go a little sidetrack here, Kevin Smith was writing a new Superman film. And one of the people, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but one of the people he was forced to write with wanted a gigantic spider in the film. He kept pushing for it, and Kevin Smith's like, this makes no sense why this spider would want to be in here. Eventually,
is this the Nicolas Cage one that they were doing? Or?
No.
Oh, no. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Eventually, the project fell through. Kevin Smith was rolled off it. And this guy went to go work on a film called Wild Wild West. And Kevin Smith says he wasn't watching it, and then he saw this giant spider come out of nowhere, and he's like, "Oh, yep, I know that guy. I know that guy worked on that film."
Yeah, there was a spider. Yeah.
Another person considered for Neo was Brad Pitt. Pitt was considered for Neo, but turned it down the role because he had just finished Fight Club and was not interested in another intense role. Leonardo DiCaprio was considered an approach, but reportedly declined it because he didn't want to commit to another special effects heavy movie so soon after Titanic. Speaking of Nicolas Cage, he was considered for Neo, but rejected the role due to family commitments that would have interfered with the film's intensive shooting schedule. So Nicolas Cage passed on a big moneymaker here, which I thought was pretty hilarious. Finally, the second to last person considered was Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, according to Don Davis.
He may be in debt, but yes, that's true.
Yeah, well, actually, he's getting out of debt now.
I know.
Johnny Depp was Lana and Lily's first choice for Neo, but Warner Brothers wanted Brad Pitt or Val Kilmer. After Val Kilmer and Brad Pitt said no, Warner Bros. Was willing to consider Johnny, and then it came down to Johnny Depp and some guy named Keanu Reeves, whom Warner Brothers was pushing for. Keanu was always really turned on into the concept of it and wanted to really get into the film, and he made a big difference in the casting when he was eventually cast. But I did find it interesting that before all these people were considered, the Wachowskis actually really wanted Brandon Lee for the film
That
when
would
they
have been
started
cool.
making the concept early in the early 90s, and unfortunately, Brandon Lee passed away in 1994 from The Crow. Uh, After a series of rejections, the role was offered to Keanu Reeves, who had an affinity for philosophical ideas in script. He added a little bit to help the Wachowskis refine it a little bit. He also had experience with action films like Speed and was eager to immerse himself in martial arts training required. Now, if you've seen the John Wick films, Keanu actually went and did jujitsu. It's actually a training in that discipline now. Um, to do, he takes the fighting sequences and fighting scenes in films seriously, which is kind of cool. He's really, really dedicated to his craft. Um, he underwent like a rigorous training camp despite suffering a neck injury during pre-production, which demonstrated his dedication to the film, as I just said. So we have our Neo. Now let's go on to Morpheus. People consider for this film, this guy, Gary Oldman. He was briefly considered for the role of Morpheus, but did not progress beyond discussions. Samuel L. Jackson.
Ooh.
Jackson was on the list of actors for Morpheus, but passed it due to scheduling conflicts. Val Kilmer comes back into play. He was suggested, but ultimately not pursued further for the role. The final actor chosen was Lawrence Fishburne, was cast due to his commanding screen presence and deep voice. And I do love Lawrence Fishburne's voice,
That was
which
great.
matched the character's role as a mentor and guide. He was able to embody the gravitas required for Morpheus, and his performance resonated with the Wachowskis. Randy Quaid, oh man, Randy Quaid as
Yes.
Morpheus, yes.
Uncle Eddie. Cousin
Fish,
Eddie. Cousin
yeah,
Eddie.
cousin Eddie. Fishburne was reportedly drawn to philosophical themes of the film, which aligned with his own intellectual curiosity. He's gone on to describe Morpheus as the Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader all into one character. What would you think
Interesting.
about that?
I agree. Honestly, he's probably my favorite in the movie. He's also awesome in John Wick too. He's awesome in just about everything. But yes, definitely agree with what you said with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
So we now move on to Trinity. And one of the big actresses offered this role was Sandra Bullock. She was offered the part of Trinity at one point, possibly to pair her with Keanu Reeves again, due to her success and speed. And she passed on the role, possibly because she didn't feel suited for intense physical demands of the part. Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson's sister, the singer, was considered for the role, but had to decline due to scheduling conflicts with her music career.
Interesting.
Janet Jackson. Two other
Poetic
people that were
Justice, she's really good in that movie, but I
yes,
don't know about
yes.
this one.
Whenever I think of Janet Jackson, I think of that bar rescue episode where that guy's like, "Play some Janet Jackson."
Yeah.
But two other people that were considered that we have details on that turned down the role were Gillian Anderson of X Files and Jennifer Beals. She turned it down as well. And then, according to just doing research, a lot of other people were just offered the role here. And I'm just going to go through a list here, Tone. Jennifer Connelly, Marissa Tomei, Salma Hayek, which I love Salma Hayek, but I cannot see her being Trinity because her accent is so thick. Catherine Zeta-Jones, Halle Berry, Jennifer Lopez, Angelina Jolie, Angie Harmon, Drew Barrymore, Kate Hudson, Uma Thurman, Ming Yen Wen, Michelle Yeoh, Winona Ryder, Lucy Liu, Courtney Cox, Heather Graham, Elizabeth Hurley, Mariska Haggerty. We already said Jennifer Beals, Ashley Judd, all auditioned or were considered or were offered or turned down the role of Trinity.
You said Melissa Haggerty. For a second there, I was thinking it was Julie Haggerty in Airplane.
No.
And I was like, wow, wouldn't she have been a little too, but you said Melissa. But yeah, that's a lot of people trying out for this role.
Yes, but eventually Carrie-Anne Moss was chosen for the role, and she was a lesser known actress at the time, but her audition impressed the Wachowskis, and her physicality and ability to convey both strength and vulnerability made her perfect fit for the role. One crazy thing about Carrie-Anne Moss is that she actually injured herself early on in filming, and she hid it from the Wachowskis because she was terrified they would replace her.
Mm.
So, she got her big break. So good for her, for Carrie-Anne Moss. In the
Mm.
role of Agent Smith, one actor was considered, and that was Jean Reno, which he was considered for the role. He offered it. He had it turned down because he had to do a movie with Matthew Broderick called Godzilla.
Oh, that movie's great. No, I'm just kidding. That movie's awful.
There's a lot of fish. But crazy that he turned it down. The Wachowskis are always looking at this guy named Hugo Weaving because he was in this film performance called The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. And his ability to portray a cold, detached, and menace made him a perfect fit for the role of Agent Smith. And the Wachowskis really liked Hugo Weaving. And like I just, said how great he was in the in V for Vendetta. But I'm really happy he was chosen for the role of Agent Smith. And Sam comes in with one of his famous one-liners. Carrie-Anne Moss, famously the mother of Randy Moss. He caught a lot of touchdowns at Randy Moss.
Well, and just to back it up just a second further, I've been laughing at Aquila and the Bee over here because at school we've watched this probably 4 times in the last 2 years, and he is a legend in that movie. I will agree.
Other notable castings was Sci-Fi, Joe Pantoliano, or Joey Pants as we call him. He had worked with the Wachowskis on Bound, and his performance in the film led them to casting him as Sci-Fi. The Wachowskis knew him, and they knew he could deliver a morally ambiguous character with a necessary edge. And Joey Pants has said himself, he is one of the roles that he is recognized for is Sopranos. This role, they loved him in.
Do you were you getting mixed up there for a second? Were you trying to say Cyrus from the
Yes.
Warriors?
Yes.
I get it.
Yes, Cypher and Cyrus.
Yeah.
Also, Cyrus the Virus from
Yes.
Con Air.
What? Yeah.
Con Air.
Con Air. I don't know.
Yes. Demolition Man, it's Simon Phoenix.
Simon Phoenix, yeah, that's I see Psy and then I jump to the always
Yonara.
been told I jump too quickly sometimes without listening to the full question.
That's such a dark. In Con Air, when the guy's like Psy, he goes Honora, and he throws the cigarette to blow him up.
Great.
For the role of Switch was given to Belinda McClory. When she auditioned for the role of Switch, she was only going to play half the role. The character was originally planned to be played by androgynous actors. In the real world, Switch would be a male actor, and in The Matrix, a female, hence the name Switch. Warner Brothers refined the idea, and McClory ended up getting a single female role in both environments. In interviews many, many years later, the Wachowskis, who at the time had been considering undergoing sexual reassignments, stated that they were trans elements in the film. This was one of them. Again, she was originally meant to be both genders, which is why the name Switch was given. Lily Wachowski would later say that The Matrix contains a trans metaphor by the name of Switch highlighted where their headspaces were when it came to the idea of the Matrix, but from a closeted point of view. The other concept for Switch's presentation may be a reflection of Lily and Lana Wachowski's struggles with gender identity, which were unknown to the public at the time. And it's kind of sucks that they kind of took that away from them. They told them to switch it up, but I use Switch, but to change the story. And I wish they would have left it in because it is their vision. But kudos to them for being able to come out and feel comfortable talking about this.
Sure.
But yeah, just revolutionary in terms of that aspect of it as well in terms of the film. For the character of Tank, this role always makes me laugh because of the actor, and I'll tell you why. The initial actor consideration for this was Harold Perrineau, and if you know who he is, he's actually Link in the next 2 films, and he's also one of the characters in Oz, the guy in the wheelchair. He's also in Felon. He's one of the security guards, one of the bad guys. Sam, no elephants. Perrineau was known for his role in Romeo and Juliet and later Lost, and was considered for the role of Tank due to his acting versatility and ability to balance serious and lighthearted moments. He rejected it though due to scheduling conflicts, which made him unavailable for the role. The final actor that was chosen for this role was Marcus Chong. Why? Because he gained attention in his role in Panther, which was really awesome. He did Huey Lewis was his
Oh,
not Huey Lewis, Huey Newton, I think it is.
I was gonna say Huey Lewis.
Yeah,
That's the
Huey
new
Lewis
version.
in the News.
I would know that. I'm like, no, I don't.
Yeah, Huey Newton, I'm sorry, was the character he played. Very, very good film. It was I believe it was a Showtime film.
Check that one out.
And they thought he would be awesome for, being down to earth for a tank. And unfortunately, Chong was lined up to return for sequels later, and he had a salary dispute with the producers that led him to be written out of The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions. Marcus kind of went ape shit. He would show up on set and like disrupt and whatnot when the other films were made, and he was protesting outside. He made signs. It's look into the Marcus Chong
I'll have to
story
do that. I've never
about
heard
this.
that.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why he wasn't brought back for the film. For the character of Mouse, initial actor considerations were Tobey Maguire. Maguire was considered for the role of Mouse, especially after his breakout role in The Ice Storm in 1997. His youthful look and quirky energy made him a perfect fit for Mouse. He rejected the role, though, as he was pursuing other projects and wasn't yet keen on committing to intense training required for the film. Seems like a lot of actors are being kind of lazy here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, probably looking back, going, "What did I do? I missed out on a good opportunity here."
Matt Doran was eventually chosen, and he was selected due to being kind of like a boyish looking guy. He had a lot of enthusiasm, and he was kind of like unknown, so that kind of helped. They didn't want like well known actors to distract people from those smaller roles in the film, which I thought was a good choice. Uh, for the role of the Oracle, Alfre Woodard was considered. Woodard, known for her powerful performance in films like Cross Creek and Star Trek First Contact, was considered for the role of the Oracle. Her combination of wisdom and warmth made her a strong candidate, but she had to reject it due to scheduling conflicts. Another actress that was considered was Angela Bassett, who had previously starred in What's Love Got to Do with It and Strange Days, was considered contender for the role. Her ability to bring strength and warmth to a character was seen as a good match for the Oracle, and I think she would have did a really good job. Bassett was reportedly interested, but chose other projects that were aligned with her career at the time. The final actress that was chosen was Gloria Foster, and Foster's experience on stage and screen brought a gravitas and warmth to the Oracle. The Wachowskis wanted someone who could embody both a wise, almost maternal figure, and I think she did a really, really good job as she's kind of a mentor to Neo. Her portrayal of the Oracle became one of the most beloved elements of the Matrix series, with her mysterious yet comforting demeanor providing a crucial contrast to the action-heavy, cerebral tone of the film. And when she passed, I know it hurt a lot of people because she was like one of her favorite characters in the film. She also has a lot of funny little one-liners, so I always crack me up, stuff that she does. So we have the cast is now selected. I didn't go into the other actors that didn't really have a lot of background stories for them. The audition and training process. So the training process for this, all actors involved in key roles, including Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne and Carrie-Anne Moss, underwent 4 months of intensive martial arts training under Yuen Wu Ping, who's a legendary Hong Kong fight choreographer. The Wachowskis insisted on this level of commitment to ensure that the actors could perform their own stunts and fight sequences. So that's probably why all the other actors didn't want to do it, because they were like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, when that's the one thing that I think you could put Keanu almost above everybody else is, well, maybe not Swayze in Roadhouse because he might have did a little bit more work. No, I'm just kidding. But he gives everything in the action department. Like John Wick is amazing. I love John Wick quite a lot. And this is amazing. And even a revisit to Johnny Mnemonic might have you also, after seeing this, being like, maybe this movie isn't as bad as they made it out but it's not great, but there is some good elements in it, like your main man Dolph Lundgren. He does a good job in the movie, but just really, again, these actors, again, the process as you were explaining it, I'm thinking to myself, they had a lot of aces that they could have went with, and they ended up finding aces out of some more unknown actors.
Yeah, it's I thought they did a really good job thoroughly, vetting
Mhm.
the actors and actresses for the role.
I mean, when you say Courtney Cox, and earlier I bring up Lisa Kudrow, and you're saying to yourself, like, well, who we missing? Jennifer Aniston? And then she could have been, and then you
She was
in the
too busy
sick,
doing
my mind
Leprechaun.
is sick. My mind's like those old picture views you used to have as a kid. Because I see them in this role, and I'm like, oh God, this is now worse than Johnny, moronic, as they said when it came out. But yeah.
Yeah. Jennifer Aniston needs to come back and do Leprechaun like 85 or something like that with Warwick Davis.
I'd like that.
But that is our cast. That's our director. That is our story tone. But let's get to the good stuff. Tell us about the soundtrack, my friend.
All right, there is well, number one, let's start with two soundtracks for this movie that came out. Of course, you have your the 1999 the original soundtrack, which will be more of the original score, which we're going to get to in a second. But they also came out with more of we always talk about in here, a more traditional soundtrack, which was just honestly loaded with lots and lots of awesome tracks. The soundtrack itself, was released in March 30th in 1999. But the range of music on this soundtrack, you got everything from trip hop, industrial metal, big beat, new metal, rap metal, but also just a lot of awesome music. What's cool about this movie, like a lot of other movies, is the soundtrack is loaded with 13 tracks, but there is also a lot of songs that are in the movie that are not on the soundtrack, which you may, if you are listening to the movie, will hear. But some of the classics that are on the actual soundtrack with the bands, I mean, Ministry, who I love a lot, do Bad Blood, which is great. The Prodigy does Minefields. What's cool is even something like Rob Zombie does Dragula. What's cool is he does the remix of it. A lot of these are remixes. You even get a little Rammstein. Of course, Yumper, as we've talked multiple times before, the soundtrack ends with the great Rage Against the Machine doing Wake Up. But as we go through the film, I'll maybe throw out some of these songs as when they are playing in the movie. But again, a really great soundtrack. There's some like the songs I was talking about that appear in the movie that really aren't on the soundtrack is Duke Ellington. He has a song in the movie, I'm Beginning to See the Light. Also really interesting is Can You Trip Like I Do? The Filters track is in the movie, and right around the same time, which I'm going to figure out right now, came the Spawn soundtrack, which I talked about, which was in 97, and that was on that. It also appears in this movie. Also, though, there's a flip side, which is really great to every soundtrack, is the musical score, which was done by Don Davis, which a little research into Don Davis. He was involved with the Wachowskis doing Bound. So they were working together prior to The Matrix, which I thought was really awesome. I'm really big, even on the hookup on music, in movies, anything, when collaborations happen. When I look down and I see we got 30 episodes, it makes me go, this is collaboration. Collaboration is great. And that's why it would be different if it was like 30 different people in one episode. So it's cool with collaboration. So Don Davis collaborating with the Wachowskis is really, really awesome. Even on the animated series that they did. Also has done some other things, like we had covered recently, Jurassic Park. He did Jurassic Park 3. But that being said, it's a really, really good soundtrack that even as time has gone on, they have released a deluxe edition in 2008, which was more expanded to 78 minutes because the original was crazily only 30 minutes. And this movie has more music in it than that. But honestly, both are great. Backing up to the other soundtrack, the Propeller Heads, who were part of the soundtrack, did a song that honestly, if I am remembering correctly, it was the one that a lot of people were like, my friends were like, this sounds a little bit different than some of the other stuff we're listening to. Just a really, really cool, again, that it's called like trip hop, but I really enjoy it. The soundtrack is great. Just like the rest of the movie, as we're about to dig into. But yeah, that's a little background on the soundtrack.
Yeah, just looking over the soundtrack here while you were talking about it, Spy Break, which is the scene you just showed right now with the shootout in I think the post office they have,
Yeah.
in the lobby. Du Hast was
Oh.
probably one of the big, songs
Du
from it.
Hast.
And I remember when that, we heard that song, everybody's like, oh, what is this? And it became basically is probably their biggest American hit for Rammstein. Wake Up, of course, Rage Against the Machine. A song I really love on this soundtrack has no words to it, and that's Club the Dead,
Yeah.
Death by Rob Dugan. I love the piano part of it, and it's played, I think, when the woman in red walks by. But really, really nice little mixture of different sounds. You said Prodigy, Deftones, Marilyn Manson. It's all different types of, and then, a good movie and good soundtrack, which is really a rarity these days.
Honestly, I'm going to be really honest with you. I'm a little, you can call me ignorant tonight, because honestly, when I was going to do research for this, I was thinking it was just going to be a score. I had totally forgot about the big soundtrack with all the songs. So it was a surprise to actually dig deep, because I haven't really paid attention to the musical side of The Matrix, and I don't know how long. Was interesting that Rage Against the Machine, Deftones, I mean, really big. I don't like to talk about him too much because of his travesties, but Marilyn Manson, I mean, even his song is on the album. But again, great soundtrack.
Rob Zombie as well.
Rob Zombie, I mean, Dragula, man, dig through the ditches, burn through the witches.
Did you ever see the old lady singing it?
Oh, I wish I had the video right now. I'm playing next week.
Yeah, we'll find it. There's an older lady doing it for karaoke, and it's quite hilarious. But that is our film development. Tony went through the soundtrack, and we went through how the actors were chosen, the director, and how the film came into a concept from the Wachowskis. Tony, are you ready to get into this film breakdown, my friend?
Let's do it.
See the arc? He starts down here. He ends up here. Where's my arc, Paulie?
The Matrix. We'll be right back after this.
Colbert was going through all of his movies, and he was like, Point Break, he's like, Swayze, great hair. He's like going, but when he said The Matrix, he had a pause, and because that's how deep the movie means to Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, and I believe this is the interview where he actually said that he wanted Constantine to come back.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and it's become a reality because the script is done. They're just waiting to read it. And
Keanu can now be the man, like, point and say, I want that, and get what he wants. He's got some good movies coming out in the can too.
Yeah, his career in the last few years has been very, very good. So we open this film with Trinity, and she's getting chased by some agents. She gets basically chased by some people in suits and some police officers. She jumps out a window and shoots at them. And we see the first time bullet time in the film. And her leap across the rooftop was created using 120 still cameras that were rigged in a circle, capturing her jump in super slow motion. This is where she performed her own stunts, and she did hurt her ankle during production. Again, like I said, she was terrified of being replaced, so she never told anybody. The iconic scene for this when she jumps out the window. Tone took 6 months of training for Carrie-Anne Moss and 4 days to shoot.
Wow.
Yeah, the green tint in the scene signifies the Matrix simulated reality. The kind of the little flickering they have there. The police uniforms were intentionally designed to resemble 1930s style noir detective outfits, which I thought was pretty cool. We then, cut to this basically being a dream, and probably one of my favorite parts of the film is the wake up Neil scene. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we'll check it out now.
What the hell?
It's really cool how he wakes up from this dream of having about Trinity, and then like his computer's talking to him, and he's like, "What the hell?" As it says, "The Matrix has you." Uh, Neil is woken up due to this computer going off, and from this dream, he also gets bothered by somebody trying to buy a program from him. We never know what the program or script that he gives to him does, but we can tell it's illegal. And he's probably a side hacker on the side. It probably makes him illegal, shady stuff to make extra money. Um, so Thomas Anderson basically is a programmer by day and a hacker by night. One cool thing about this scene tone is that his room is 101, which is reference to George Orwell's 1984 and the infamous Room 101, where people confront their worst fears. Also, binary code is ones and zeros. So 101. The Wachowskis were heavily inspired by cyberpunk novels for this film. And you can kind of see it in this scene with, the kind of emo looking people coming. And before he opens the door to see these people, he is given a message that to follow the white rabbit. And what the hell does that mean in his mind? But he sees one of the girls has a white rabbit tattoo on her back, and they're going to a club. And that's where he goes and sees Trinity for the first time. Now, the crazy thing about this club is it's kind of like a sadomasochist club. Um, it was filmed in a real club in Sydney, Australia, and all the extras were actually real patrons of the club, which I thought was pretty hilarious. And this scene, Tone Dracula is playing by Rob Zombie. We see him first meet Trinity, and she's basically, telling him not too much about what she is, but he knows her as a hacker, like a famous hacker that kind of fell off the grid years past. He eventually, I guess, drinks with her, and then wakes up late for work the next day, and he runs there, and he gets reprimanded by his boss.
You have a problem with authority, Mr. Anderson. You believe that you are special, that somehow the rules do not apply to you. Obviously, you are mistaken.
And this is kind of making it seem like he is not worth anything. He's kind of being held in lower value. Of course, people claim this is the Matrix doing this to make him seem self-worthless. But, it's funny. He works for a company called Metacortex, which, is symbolic. Meta can refer to self-awareness or a higher level of thinking, while cortex refers to the brain. Together, it's just a place where people's minds are controlled. Ooh,
Very interesting.
During this scene, he gets a box delivered to his cubicle, I guess, and inside of it's a cell phone. Now, I remember watching this scene, Tone, and I'm like, "What the hell is this? Like, what's going on here?" Like, it just seemed too fake. And on the phone is Morpheus telling him that there's agents coming for him, and he tells him to go out the window and basically jump off, and to trust him. And Neo, like any sane person, gets scared shitless and gets caught by the agents. Tone.
Oh yeah, that was. I mean, I like Keanu for a lot of reasons. I like the way he acts. Like at first, in some things you're like, oh, but I mean, this is when Keanu's really coming into the Keanu we know as Keanu. I know there was a lot of Keanu's right there.
Yeah, and just doing some symbolism here. His cubicle, along with others in the office, is a representation of modern corporate life, suggesting that employees are trapped in a mechanical, soulless system. I feel like that every day at work.
I was,
Um,
I was gonna say I feel something close.
yeah, and for the part where he's actually outside the building, he had to have a harness attached to him, and wire work for his stunt there. Yeah, too many canoes, Keanu, so many canoes. Um, Eventually, he is caught by the agent, and we first meet Agent Smith.
It seems that you've been living two lives. In one life, you're Thomas A. Anderson, program writer for a respectable software company. You have a social security number, you pay your taxes, and you help your landlady carry out her garbage. The other life is lived in computers, where you go by the hacker alias Neo and are guilty of virtually every computer crime we have a law for.
I love his like the way he draws out, the way he talks.
Oh yeah,
It's
another great part
awesomely
of the
done.
movie.
And they're basically dressed in black suits with white shirts to look plain, look intimidating but plain, kind of like the Men in Black. Um, kind of fit in but not really fit in. Uh, they eventually do probably one of the most famous scenes of the film is when they're telling he's like, "You can't do shit to me. Where's my lawyer?" And he goes, "I want a phone call." And he's like, "Well, how are you gonna make a phone call when you have no mouth?" And
Yeah.
he puts his hand in his mouth, and his mouth disappears. And then they shoot something that into his stomach, and he wakes up again. Uh, to where he leaves his apartment, and he is kidnapped by Trinity and the gang. They grab him and they take him in a car, switch APOC and Trinity have him, and they basically pull the mechanical tracker out of him, which is pretty disgusting because it goes through his belly button.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's when he goes, "Oh my god, that was real," which is crazy. After this, they take him to meet the man, the myth, the legend Morpheus. And here he is explained that he has a choice.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
And Sam says, "I love the South Park episode. We're going to the Matrix. Into the Matrix is doing a shot of Jameson." That's great. So Morpheus gives him the choice: red pill or blue pill. This now has become a meme like no other. It is done for anything, sports, movies, life. People have the Morpheus meme of him having the red pill and the blue pill, and you choose one of them. It's one of the most referenced scenes in cinema history, symbolizing the choice between confronting reality or remaining in ignorance. Lawrence Fishburne improvised some of his lines to give Morpheus a more profound philosophical presence, and the pill scene was shot with a reflection of the pills seen in Morpheus' sunglasses, requiring meticulous camera work. The pills themselves, they symbolize red being danger and truth, and the blue pill meaning safety and ignorance. So Neo takes the red pill and wakes up in a tub of goo.
Ooh.
The first thing he does is pull the thing down his throat, and he's basically in kind of like a pod with all these other bodies in this desolate like wasteland that is disgusting, and all these robots are around them.
It kind of reminds me of like DB Sweeney and it's the one with the alien one when we talked about the alien. It's from the sky. What it's Fire in the Sky.
Fire in the
Where he
Sky.
goes up in there, he's got like that plastic thing. It's something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. He has his shaved head and all these like holes on the back of his body, behind his head and whatnot. And to prepare for the scene, Keanu actually lost 15 pounds and shaved his entire body to look emancipated.
Mm.
The biomechanical look of the pods in the real world was inspired by H.R. Geiger's work on Alien.
Mm.
And the concept of humans being used as batteries by the machines was a late addition to the script suggested by this guy, I don't know, Joe Silver, some guy named Joe Silver.
I think I've heard of him.
So Neil is rescued after he goes down the little tubes because basically he's worthless now and they dump him, the guest to be getting rid of. And the Nebuchadnezzar, this ship picks him up. There he is grabbed by Morpheus, who gives him clothes. He meets the crew, who give him a hard time. He eats some slop.
Ooh.
And then, it's kind of one of my weird parts of this part of the movie is when they're talking about food and they're explaining in the Matrix that there's so many different combinations of food that the computer basically can't make the real name, the real stuff for it. So that's why so many things taste like chicken.
Ooh. Ooh.
At this time, they show him that he's going to be plugged in again into a training program, and he's plugged into the construct by Tank, and he speaks to Morpheus there, and Morpheus tells him the story of how there was a war and the machines basically turned all the weapons on humans, and they needed to have the sun because the humans destroyed the sun with explosions, which kind of doesn't make any sense because we be basically forever frozen, but the land wasn't frozen, Tone. But they needed a heat source, so they basically made humans as a heat source. Then he takes him into a training program where he's explaining all this stuff to him, and he's walking in basically a crowd of people, and it looks like Chicago. I think they're on Lakeshore Drive during this. But saying that it's a shot in Sydney, Australia, but it looks like Lakeshore Drive. But they're walking and all these people, and Neo keeps looking at this chick in a red dress. And I love how Morpheus is like, "Are you paying attention to Neo, or are you looking at the woman in the red dress?" And when he turns around to look at her again, it's an agent.
Cool.
Yeah, which is what he tells him. You have to pay attention because anyone can be an agent, and it's basically between life and death. As we progress, Tank tells him, "Okay, we're going to give you some training programs, but we're going to skip the computer work, basically the beginning organizational programs. We're going to put you into combat training." And he gives them jujitsu. Basically, it's kind of cool how they just upload the program and it goes straight to his brain through the computer in the Matrix. And he's like, "Oh my god!" And he's like, "You want some more?" He goes, "Hell yes." How would you feel about that, Tone? Like being able to basically do any skill, any language, anything, be programmed right into you.
Oh, I mean, anything shy of amazing? I mean, but then again, you're also like, would it become boring? Like, because you all have everything and you don't have to work for it anymore? It's like one of those double-edged swords for me.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
It's incredible.
So when Tank's uploading these martial arts to Neo, there is a shot on the computer screen and it scrolls through the various, art styles like Kempo and kickboxing. And the fifth one on the screen is entitled Drunken Boxing. Wu Pingyan, the fight choreographer for this film, was the director and fight choreographer for Jackie Chan's early hit, Drunken Master, in 1978. So it was a homage to him. Some of the other martial arts fighting styles that are downloaded are Jiu-Jitsu, like we said, Salvate, which I don't know what it is, Kempo, Taekwondo, and of course, Kung Fu. And that's where we hear this famous line.
How was he? 10 hours straight. He's a machine. I know Kung Fu. Show me.
And that's where they go into the combat training program. And I love when Mouse runs upstairs and tells everybody, Morpheus is fighting Neo. And everybody runs down to the computer to watch them fight. the training sparring sequence is pretty cool, Tone. If you notice, Keanu Reeves rubs his nose before he fights Morpheus, and do you know why he does that?
No, I do not.
It's homage to Bruce Lee.
Really?
Yeah, because that's what Bruce Lee did before he fought, which I thought was pretty cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, the dojo was built well before it was used. During the dojo sequence, there was significant physical contact between both actors, earning them both bruises. Because Keanu Reeves' neck injury prior to filming meant he had insufficient training with wires up to the point, and due to the physical toll he had taken by Fishburne up to that point, he was unable to perform the triple kick satisfactorily and became frustrated with himself, causing the scene to be postponed. The scene was shot successfully a few days later, but Reeves only using 3 takes. Wu Ping-yen altered the choreography of the scene from then on and made the actors pull their punches in the last sequence of the scene, creating a training feel and giving them both a much needed relief. So these guys are actually punching the shit out of each other. What? Sam Reeves with some breaking NBA news. The Minnesota Timberwolves are trading Cat to the Knicks. What's the return, Sam? Carl Anthony Towns to the Knicks. I know P. Moore, one of my buddies, P. Moore, is going to be very excited by his Knicks fan. Knicks are making a run, man. During this scene, they're basically beating the shit out of each other, Tone. And, afterwards, Neo's getting beat by Morpheus to where, they kind of like get done with their sparring, and Morpheus tells Tank to load the jump program. And he's basically trying to teach Neo that this is all in your mind. You have to free it because you can do things like no other person because you're free of being controlled by the Matrix. And Morpheus shows him this by jumping to the other building with like one leap.
It's like the Hulk in that Ang Lee Hulk.
Yeah,
like jumps in the desert, the huge jumps.
And I didn't grab this quote, but I always loved when Neo's like, "Whoa." But as Morpheus tells him to free his mind, Neo decides to free his mind, runs and drops right into the floor. And I love how the floor becomes kind of like rubber as he falls into it and then bounces back up.
Yeah.
And they wake him up. But when he wakes up, he has blood in his mouth.
I thought it wasn't real. Your mind makes it real. If you're killed in the Matrix, you die here? The body cannot live without the mind.
So Sam tells us that Julius Randle, or Orange Julius, got traded for Dante DiVincenzo and Detroit first pick. Wow. They're going for it. The Knicks are going to be terror. They got a buddy from
I feel like I've heard this before about the Knicks.
Yeah, they got they just picked up the guy from
all those guys. Like, I want the Knicks. I mean, poor Spike Lee, film director. I know.
Morris Blackman. That's who we care about. Okay, back to the film. Sorry, I got a little caught up in NBA talk there. After this, we see him going to meet the Oracle. Now, prior to meeting the Oracle, we see Cypher, who is played by Joey Pants. And there's a scene that's we didn't talk much about, Tone, but there's a scene where he's reading the computer, like all the screens or all the code. And the funny thing is about the Matrix code, I think it was just binary code for tea recipes. Which is what
that's great.
But we see him saying they're drinking what he calls battery acid from Dozer. And he's telling, Neo comes out to talk to him. They have a drink. And I love when he tells him, I know what you're thinking right now. Why didn't I take the blue pill? Which is cracks me up. But it kind of shows the inside the psyche of Cypher and what he's thinking at this point. And prior to going to see the Oracle, we see him meeting with the agents.
Mr. Reagan.
I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth,
The Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious. After 9 years, you know what I realize? Ignorance is bliss.
That steak he ate looked awesome. Like, really, really good. And it cracks me up because Mailman Jack actually picked this scene for getting drafty in here, where he chose it as one of his favorite food scenes in the draft. This, of course, and the uh, pick for Twister, which I thought was awesome. Uh, when they were eating with the grandmother, the aunt at Twister. So we see Cypher being basically taken out to dinner, and it's kind of like colluding and talking to the agents there. Uh, but as we go forward, they go to see the Oracle, which is somebody that Morpheus really wants Neo to meet. And when he goes to see the Oracle, he sees a kid outside, Tone, bending a spoon.
Ooh.
And he tells him, "You have to imagine the spoon's not there," which always cracked me up. And he just looks at the spoon like in the canoe way. Yeah, fucking Ralph Cifaretto. And he's mesmerized by it. We then see him go and meet the Oracle, which is hilarious because she's making cookies. Now, in computer lingo, cookies are used to carry and hold data and, sessions of people and information about people. And it's illegal. So in layman's terms, whenever you save your password to your Google Chrome and you go into your Google Chrome and you go to a certain website and your password and username pop up, that's a cookie that does that for you. There's Tech 101 here on the At the Show pod. But he meets the Oracle and she tells him some news that maybe he doesn't really want to hear.
Okay. Now I'm supposed to say, that's interesting, but then you say.
But what?
But you already know what I'm going to tell you.
I'm not the one.
Sorry, kid. You got the gift, but it looks like you're waiting for something.
And the background, I think that's the Duke Ellington song you were talking about, Tone.
Yeah, that is Duke Ellington. Yep.
She tells him he's not the one, basically, and I love how though she just grabs his hands and just looks him left and right and is like, "Oh yeah, you're not the one."
I really liked how I remember this specifically. I'm like in the theater, and honestly, the movie feels very bleak. But then, as in the scene in the apartment, it's like very like nice and warm, and she's very nice and kind. I always remembered that being in the theater.
Tell him what shirt are you wearing?
Oh, I am wearing a shirt that has a bunch of really awesome watermelons on it.
Okay, it's the reason I say it is because you have the picture of him stopping the bullets.
Yes, and it looks like I have bullets.
It looks like there's bullets on your.
Wouldn't that be? I made it for the show tonight. I should have said that. Darn
it! That's awesome. It was just so random. Watch the YouTube version and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So Neo walks out from the Oracle, and Morpheus says, "I don't want to know what she says. I already know she told you." He thinks she told him he was the one, and Neo doesn't have the heart to tell him. So as they go back to the building that they basically are going to go back to the real world, they get transferred through a phone call from the operator tank, and they get plugged into the Matrix, and basically a phone call out takes them to the real world. Well, before I do that, we see Mouse reading a pornographic magazine that says "The Woman in Red" on the front of it, which cracks me up. And as they're approaching up to the building, Neo sees a cat twice and says "deja vu." And deja vu apparently means that somebody is changing something in the Matrix. And according to Wachowskis, all animals in the Matrix, such as the black cats, for example, are computer generated images.
Mm.
So during this scene, Tony, you see the Matrix is a get changed, and we see Mouse looking out the windows and Tank saying, "Oh my god," as he's reading the code, as the windows have now became brick walls. And we have the police and agents coming after Mouse when he pulls out these two big ass guns and tries to shoot them and eventually gets killed while the others run away. Uh, they go down, I guess, inside of a wall to where they're climbing down. Unfortunately, Morpheus risks himself for Neo as he thinks that the agents are after him, and he breaks through the wall and fights the agents to where they beat the hell out of him. Um, they eventually go into a apartment or like a work center where the phone's ringing that Tanks tells him to pick up, and Cypher is the first one to grab the phone. And when Cypher is pulled out into the real world, Tank is happy he's out. Tank's going to try to get everybody else out, and Cypher goes and takes a gun and shoots Tank, well, like electrical gun, which I guess didn't work at first because he's like, "Oh shit," when he didn't kill him at first. And it always cracks me up how Bulldozer, Tank's brother, runs after him. He's like, "No!" and gets shot. Then we see Cypher telling Trinity certain things about Morpheus.
Most of all, I'm tired of that jagoff and all of his bullshit. Surprise, asshole. I bet you never saw this coming. Did you? God, I wish I could be there. And they break you. I wish I could walk in just when it happens. So right then, you'd know it was me.
And during this, we see him he goes on to kill a pocket switch. And then he's going to kill Neo. And he says, "Well, Trinity, if Neo was the one, somebody would stop me right here." And when he says, he's like, "Oh, you gotta be kidding me." And we see Tank is still alive and kills him with the gun. Tank brings them back to where they're asking him, "Where's Dozer?" And he says he didn't make it. We find out Dozer was killed, and Cypher basically gave up Morpheus for, to be put back into the Matrix, which I don't know how that would happen if they would clear his mind or whatnot to put him back in. I don't think it can be done because he was already woken up. But now we have to go rescue Morpheus, Tone.
Gotta get him back.
So they're planning to rescue Morpheus, and we have that famous shootout scene which you showed a video of earlier of them running off the walls. It's a famous action sequence in the film, combining slow motion and wire work for it, and practical effects as well. No CGI was used for this scene, which I thought was pretty cool. The explosions and debris during the gunfight were not CGI made, and it took 10 days to film and featured hundreds of squibs, small explosive charges, to create the bullet impacts. That's a crazy scene. The bad thing about the scene is that people have said that it inspired certain tragedies, such as the Columbine incidents. That hasn't been confirmed, but it was one of the reasons that was blamed for it. I remember when Columbine happened, which is crazy. During this shootout, while they're trying to rescue Morpheus, we hear probably one of the best dialogue talk from Agent Smith.
You move to an area and you multiply and multiply until every natural resource is consumed. And the only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague, and we are the cure.
I love that monologue. Just the way he describes human scenes. Yeah. Yeah, excellent voice work too. Yeah, Sam, he's so awesome. Um, they eventually rescue Morpheus, and before this, we see Neo actually showing signs that he could be the one, as he's getting shot at by agents. And Trinity asks him, "How'd you move like that?" He's like, "I don't know," because he moves like the agents, which means he can't be shot. They eventually rescue Morpheus as he does a famous jump onto the helicopter, and they fly away. They go to a subway to be pulled out. Morpheus and Trinity get out, but Neo doesn't, and he eventually has to fight Agent Smith.
Mr. Anderson.
Run, Neo, run. What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe.
That part always made me laugh because Neo stopped running, and the whole run sequence they do prior to that when they have Neo being chased by Agent Smith as he's
Yeah.
running through the it's pretty cool because Smith basically turns into a bunch of people. He takes over people to kind of
That was really cool.
warp around. And I like how there's one where he's the old lady and then he runs past her and Smith throws a knife. And while this is all going on, they're trying to get Neo out of the Matrix. There's robots actually trying to attack the Nebuchadnezzar. And the only defense they have against it is using EMP. But if somebody's in the Matrix, it could kill them. So they're holding off, trying to hold off, using it to get Neo out. And they had a final showdown between Neo and Smith, and they basically fight. Smith's beating the shit out of Neo, to where Neo finally fights him and believes in himself, kicks him on the train tracks, runs away, gets to a phone, and is shot by Smith. And we see that Trinity tells him that he can't be dead because the Oracle told her that she would fall in love with the one that was the one, and she's in love with him. And we see him wake up, basically from the bullet holes, stop the bullets, which is always a cool CGI thing. And he picks the bullet out; they all fall. He sees the code and not the actual people in the Matrix, and he runs into Agent Smith and basically blows him up from the inside. And the other agents are like, "Fuck this, we are getting out of here," and they run away. And Neo is brought back, and we get to the closing scene of him making a phone call.
I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world without you.
That always cracks me up when he says that, and then he flies out of the phone booth. But "Wake Up" by Rage Against the Machine is used for this. It's off their first album, they're titled Rage Against the Machine, and it's perfect choice because they're all about revolution and freedom, and they're all for rights and protecting rights, and they play "Wake Up" as a rebellion song, which he's rebelling against the machines, and they have a perfect band to do it. The final scene was shot using a custom-built camera rig that allowed the cameras to fly up in the sky, symbolizing Neo's new control over reality. And we, get played out to that, and the film is over. Any final thoughts on this film, Tom?
Every movie we do, you're like the Frank Sinatra of describing movies. Because honestly, I want, if you haven't seen this movie, it's been a long time, just a great description of it. And the last thing I'm going to say is, again, really cool the way that the Wachowskis were able to bring that bleak camera work, okay, and then layer it inside with really, as described, and not much CGI, but really kind of cool practical effect, using more real special effects.
Yeah, it's really nicely shot. The special effects, although they were newer then, they kind of a little outdated, like the flying
they are.
part. But the code, when they show the code and certain aspects of that are still pretty really nicely done and hold up to this day. Also, I don't consider myself. I guess I'll be the Joey Bishop of the
Joey Bishop.
of the
Movie
movie narrative. Yeah, movie descriptive. But that is our film breakdown. Tone, you want to get into some critical reception and fan theories?
Let's do it.
You know that fat cocksucker says I look like the Shah of Iran?
Who does? Tony. I never got that at all.
I don't know if you do get that from the film, then it's something that was spoken about and internal. You probably just get that as a feeling from my character.
Always really awesome the way he really describes this movie. I mean, any interview you watch of him, he just talks about it so passionately, which is awesome when an actor doesn't shun their work. They actually put it high up on a pedestal.
Yeah, he's very humble.
It is very humble.
He's also he's just an awesome human being.
It is very.
So the film had a budget of 63 million, as we said. It made worldwide 467.6 million, 171.5 million for domestic, and 296 for international. It was the 5th highest grossing film of 1999, behind Star Wars Episode 1, which is Tony's favorite film, The Sixth Sense, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, and Toy Story 2. So Matrix was in the top 5 for those films, which is fine. It's hilarious for domestically. For reviews for the film, we can start with the positives. James Bertinelli of the Real Views site said, "The Matrix is great for blending sci-fi elements with cutting-edge visual effects. He highlighted the action sequences as visually stunning, especially mentioning how Keanu Reeves' Neo streaking down a hall with guns blazing leaves a lasting impression. He also praised the film for not overwhelming the audience despite its complex plot, stating the playoff is worth the effort. He found the supporting cast, especially Lawrence Fishburne and Hugo Weaving, added depth to the film." And that's from Real Views Movie Reviews. Kenneth Turan of the Los Angeles Times said that it was very enthusiastic and he felt the film had a unique approach to sci-fi, calling it a widely cinematic, futuristic thriller. He noted that the Wachowskis' use of spanking new visual technology created a compelling experience, likening it to both a thrilling action film and a thought-provoking science fiction film. And that was from the Los Angeles Times via the RogerEbert.com. Empire Magazine lauded the film's groundbreaking special effects, specifically the bullet time sequences, which I think is pretty crazy because this was out way before this film came out, and that it's mistakenly given credit for bullet time, which it isn't. And its combination of martial arts and philosophy. The review mentioned that the film set a new standard for action and science fiction cinema in the late 1990s. Those are the good ones, Tone. The bad ones, one of them surprisingly comes from our guy Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Ebert gave The Matrix a more measured review, appreciating its visual brilliance but criticizing its third act. He argued that after presenting fascinating philosophical ideas about reality, the film retreats into a more formulaic action finale. Ebert stated, "It's cruel, really, to put tantalizing ideas on the table and then ask the audience to be satisfied with a shootout." Time Out, another critique, noted that while the first hour of The Matrix was engrossing and full of potential, it eventually leaned too heavily into action tropes, making it feel less revolutionary in its later half. They compared it unfavorably to other science fiction works like Dark City. That's not what?
They're not making fun of Dark City, are they?
Which followed through more thoroughly on its philosophical themes. So they said Dark City was better. Which Dark City is a great movie. And this is from Real Reviews, Movie Reviews. So you got some people that loved it, and then you got people like Roger Ebert who thought the second half wasn't as good. What do you think, Tom?
I think a little bit of all of it. It is a movie that honestly, a lot of people liked it a lot when it first came out, like a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. I mean, I always leaned again more towards Boogie Nights and Pulp Fiction, but I do enjoy the movie, and I think I appreciate it a lot more as I've gotten older. There's a lot of cool, deep, a lot of philosophical, philosophical different things that you can do in the that you can do that are presented in the movie that I just think are like as you said, groundbreaking for generations at that time. I mean, we've talked about Grandma's Boy on here before. I mean, obviously him wearing the jacket, it's like I do not I think you got the
I'm
I
not
do
amused.
not yeah.
I am not amused.
Yeah, I mean, like they technically make fun of him. Like, was he from the Matrix or something?
Yeah,
Like,
they ask him how much do clothes cost in the Matrix.
yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, it's culturally, it's like it's been parodied and so many things. I think the story does kind of fall lackluster a little bit, but I mean, it was a hard story, a complex story, and they had to dummy it down
Mhm.
so much. So, I don't really blame that so much on them, but I mean, I can see both sides of the coin, I guess. The film did win 4 Oscars. It won Best Visual Effects, Best Film Editing, Best Sound, and Best Sound Effects Editing. It won all 4 categories that it was nominated for, making it a rare sweep in technical categories at the Oscars. It produced sequels: The Matrix Reloaded in '03, The Matrix Revolutions, and The Matrix Resurrections. Uh, these films aren't that great.
I mean, honestly, man, I'm glad I don't like those movies at all. Honestly, you could probably say the newest one would be the most like it's not even a good movie, but at least it looks okay. Like, I don't know, man. I just don't like those movies, but I love this first movie.
Yes, and it's crazy when I was looking at this that The Matrix Revolutions came out in 2003, and
Yeah.
so did The Matrix Reloaded. So they
Yeah.
released 2 big films, like,
Yeah.
6 months apart.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing Reloaded in the theater, and there's this club scene where he's like it's just like a lot of it was like too much. Like that was the problem, I think. Like it went
Oh, when they're,
too much.
not the club scene with Monica Bellucci, it's when they're, in the, when they're
Sex
having, like yeah, when they're having the
orgy or whatever that was.
no, they're having, like, a celebration, and him and Trinity are having sex in, like, this temple or some
And
shit.
then there's another scene where he's just like in this white room and he's like, it's like a 10-15 minute conversation. It's like it was bad. Just a bad
Yeah.
movie.
Here's some extra trivia for you.
Please.
The guy he was talking to is, I guess, the creator, or I forget his name in the
Oh.
film, but the white guy,
Interesting.
the guy in the white, and
Yeah.
that was originally offered to Sean Connery,
Oh,
who
interesting.
didn't understand it and turned it down. The architect is his name. Um, but the Resurrections I thought wasn't that great, and they basically changed around the whole story. So it was unfortunate because it does have James Groff in it, which
Yeah.
is from Mindhunter, which I really like. He does a great job as the new Agent Smith,
Yeah, he
but
did.
it just wasn't that great of a film altogether. This also spawned video games such as Enter the Matrix in '03, The Matrix Online in 2005, The Matrix Path of Neo in 2005, and The Matrix Awakens in 2021. Probably the most famous one is probably The Matrix '03 because it has characters like Niobe and Ghost,
Hmm.
uh, who became bigger characters in the film due to the game, which I thought was pretty crazy. It also spawned books, The Art of the Matrix in 2000, The Matrix comics in um, as well, The Matrix and Philosophy, Welcome to the Desert of the Real, and The Matrix in Theory. So,
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
The Matrix altogether worldwide, all 4 films in the franchise have grossed box office an average of $447 million apiece and a total of $1.79 billion.
Hmm. Very awesome. That's a lot of money.
Yes, sir. And the Matrix screening should be coming out within this week. to be seen. So check your local movie theaters to see what and what time it plays. But Tone, we have one fan theory.
Let's hear
And
it.
I know I've talked a lot this episode, like
Oh,
I always do every episode because
no, no,
I
no,
like to
no,
hear
no.
myself talk.
No,
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 no.
no, no.
But this one is from our Reddit at Film Theories, the subreddit. Check that out if you haven't. Just go there and read. A lot of good stuff's in there. This one's called "The Matrix: The Machines Are Actually the Good Guys," and this is by Fordrea Americana. He says, "So the fan theory is straightforward. The machines in the Matrix are actually the good guys because by the time of creating the Matrix, that's the best option for saving humanity. Based on the history provided in the films, we know the following: humanity created AI around the turn of the 21st century. The real year is 2699 or so. The Matrix is based on the peak of human civilization, according to Smith, and seems to be based on the 1990s. Based on the Second Renaissance, shorts in the Matrix, the machines in '01 had an economy so powerful that human countries couldn't compete, excalibrating tensions between humans and the machines. Kind of sounds like that's really happening now in the 2024s with the AI.
It is. It really is. Had a conversation about that earlier that kind of fits into this.
Operation Dark Storm and nuclear weapons were used in the war, which would have decimated the climate ecosystem. Now, if we use 2000 as a year that their history deviates from ours, we can assume the climate change has already started occurring. If the machine's economy was greatly outpacing that of humanity, I would assume that their carbon footprint was quite sizable unless they somehow achieved 100% clean energy from day one. Even if we assume that their economic activity left them absolutely zero impact on the environment, we also assume that human countries have increased their economic activity to compete with the machines with an attended increase in environmental impact. Bottom line, climate change would have continued in the Matrix timeline, possibly to a greater extent, and that's before the war. Then the war breaks out. Operation Dark Storm happens. This breaks the environment. No or minimal sunlight would cause plant life to engage in photosynthesis, fraction of what it was prior, which would in turn wreak havoc with the carbon dioxide oxygen balance in the air. Add in the economic activity happening on both sides to sustain war, even more ir- rovi- environmental impact. I'm sorry, I got tongue tied there. Then you have both sides using nukes freely by the end of the war with further environmental consequences. Basically, between Operation Dark Storm, nuclear weapons, and the economic systems of humanity and the machines, both before the wars and during the wars, climate change would have been exceeded, he spelled exceeded wrong, to an insane degree, possibly dooming human life on Earth long term. The machines realize this, and since they can't leave the planet, I think one of the comics mentions some sort of nanotechnology within the clouds preventing the machines from passing through. See, that's something to the lore I did not know about. Um, they realize that even if they eventually win the war, they would inherit a barren planet. So they create the Matrix to effectively warehouse humanity while the climate sorts itself out. The machines initially create Paradise Matrix, thinking that a utopia is the best simulation. Doesn't work. Do they swing in the opposite direction, which also doesn't work? Then the current incarnation, even with the cycle of the one, they think can run it indefinitely with a reboot happening every century or so. This is part of the reason the architect tells Neo that one door leads to the extinction of humanity, yet has the door always. Yeah, hold on a second. Yet has the door anyways. The environment isn't ready for humanity to be reintroduced on a mass scale. That's just making sense. But when it is, choosing a door is an option. By controlling a door, the architect can control the reintroduction of humanity into the environment to a certain extent, if and when the environment becomes viable again. And this is a normal thing, TLDR. It means too long, just didn't read. This is a description. The machines are good guys because climate change. They're keeping humanity on ice until the environment can sustain us again. And I wish you would just said that. This to me is stupid. I thought the more I read it, like he was using economics, and I understand that, but
Too
I
much.
don't. Yeah, it was just too much. I think the reason that they created certain utopias in the Matrix is because they rely off energy, and they want the brain and functioning to be working at a certain level and happy energy. And sometimes you have to have that when they need to basically kill a body, they have to kill them within the matrix, but you need a more happier functioning of the brain waves to create that good energy, to have the body at a good energy. And then probably the people who have bad energy are usually used for disposal. So they're just controlling it that way. I don't think they really cared about the climate. And if thinking about this tone, like I said, if they knocked out the sun, it would be like frozen tundra, and it's
Yeah.
not.
No.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the things that the Wachowskis didn't look at. So good try out of the theory, my man, but or a woman or it or I don't know, you might be an alien, whoever you are.
Pennywise, thank you, it.
Yeah, I disagree with that one. What about you?
Yeah, I disagree with that one. I mean, every day, I mean, just recently we seen just the Matrix in real life. This is something I think you remember. I mean, did you see the dodge of that punch? But and earlier, I guess I got word that I guess they went backstage and he literally cold cocked Navarro in the face again. So the band is over. Now, I like Navarro on One Hot Minute.
Yeah, he got cold-cocked by Anthony Kiedis too.
Did he really? Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
he I don't know if he cold-cocked. I think he threw something at him.
Oh, wow.
They're both high on. I vaguely remember reading Kiedis's autobiography, Scar Tissue, and I don't know if he punched him or he threw something at him, but they were so high off drugs. He said it was just a stupid fight. And that's when he got kicked out of the Peppers. And apparently, I don't know why everybody's going after Navarro. He wasn't even doing anything. He was just playing music, and Perry just went after him.
Well, I guess from what I was hearing is a little just real quick is that Perry wanted some dancers on the stage, one of them being his wife, and the rest of the band was like, can we just keep it the four of us? And it caused tensions and, well, yeah.
So he decided to fight him.
And he was half inebriated too. And we all know when you get inebriated sometimes how we can act.
Yeah. Oh man, but that is our Matrix breakdown. Sorry for giving you some Knicks news and some White Sox news and some
Jane's Addiction news.
Jane's Addiction news. So you get everything here. Oh, we also taught you some programming stuff here on the At the Show podcast. So that's what we are finished with for the Matrix. Let us know what you think. Again, be sure to reach out and look at your local movie theaters. I know it'll be releasing pretty soon. I know some theaters have released it already, from what I saw on this search. Just check your local thing. It is 25 years anniversary for The Matrix to be released. If you own it, watch it, check it out, and let us know what you think. Tone, let's start putting a bow on this show. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. Let's get to what is coming soon, my friend.
Let's do it.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Coming soon.
Próximamente.
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
Just this last week when my main man Yemper reached out to me and said, I think we should do this next topic, which is going to be awesome vampire movies, because we are making our way into October. Firing cylinders, deep cuts, lots of cool things came into my head right away. I'm curious to see what my main man is going to come up with. We're going to go back to the old format next week. And actually, for the month of October, we're going to roll out the old format. That's going to be 4 weeks of amazing, cool, deep dives into, a 5 and 5 of, first up, as stated, vampires. So I'm excited about this, my friend.
Yeah, so it's always nice to do this format during for a month, especially during October, because there's so many horror movies to go through and so many genres to go through within the horror. subgenre.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna come out with some films that probably haven't been mentioned. I might come out with a regular one that you might know and some you might not know. I know you're gonna come with some good ones too, so it's always fun to see what we choose during the week. We don't. The only reason I tell Tony my picks is because he makes the PowerPoint,
Yeah.
and I usually tell him probably Wednesday, and then do the notes Thursday and Friday before the show, and pass them along. Um, but yeah, man, I'm really really looking forward to this.
Be good. It's gonna be really, really, really good. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'll pick Once Bitten with Jim Carrey. I don't know. He's a vampire in that. I probably
Oh,
won't,
he
but
is.
you just never know.
Probably won't. Yeah. And just to do a little housekeeping before we go into the Sugar Baggy soundtrack pick of the week, be sure to check us out on Statistic Penguin Studios. As Tony mentioned on the Hookup on Music before our show that he does now every Friday, be sure to come and join us at 7 o'clock every Friday for the Hookup on Music. You do a double shot of Tony. He does the Hookup on Music, and then we do the At the Show podcast. So Tony's doing double duty. He's in the bullpen warming up, and then he
And,
comes
and to
out.
be and to be fair, I have never felt greater these 2 weeks in a row. So I'm loving this actually. I don't have to think about the Hookup on Music on Wednesday. It's like Friday, just fun, and I'm having a great time. So thank you.
Yes, sir. It's a good job. Check his episode out today. He just talked about Riot Fest. You were talking about George Clinton,
Bootsy Collins,
Bootsy
Daft
Collins.
Punk, Led Zeppelin. I mean, I even mentioned a little Whitney Houston, check it
Yeah,
and see what I was saying.
I was laughing when you were talking about that.
It was
I didn't.
You
But I
just
was
saw the
like,
kid's face at school. I go, you know what's stuck in my head? And he goes, what? And I go, I want to dance with somebody. And he just like stares at me. And I go, you know what? Never mind. I'm just gonna keep this to myself. But yeah, check it out. Check it out.
yeah, be sure to check it out. It's Getting Drafting here is releasing a new show next week. I believe it's on Tuesday. With Magnificent Stan. Also, he has some cool stuff coming for Halloween. Speaking of Halloween, you know that we are going to go back to 31 Days of Horror, which will be a new video every day for the month of October, released on our YouTube channel. Different videos. The list has been made. I'm already through about 10 videos. I just have to finish them up, and I'll start uploading them and then start working on the others as the days go by. So we have 10 in the can almost. Also, my man Tony's gonna be doing Halloween music blogs on the website. So one blog and one video at least every day from both of us.
We're gonna be rocking and we're gonna be rolling, and the pumpkins are gonna be carving. It's gonna be great.
So be sure to check us out at sadisticpenguinstudios.com for those blogs, and then the videos will also be there as well as our YouTube. But Tone, let's go and close this one out with the Sugar Baggy soundtrack pick of the week, my man.
Let's do it.
The Sugar Baggy soundtrack pick of the week.
Pardon my language, folks, but why the fuck did I wait so long to pick this soundtrack? Because it's one of my favorites. The Last Action Hero soundtrack, man. I mean, this is just loaded. I remember getting this cassette tape from Coconuts, and it honestly was my favorite. It still is, honestly. The first track that was released as the lead-off single was AC/DC. And besides Maximum Overdrive, which we know is loaded with AC/DC, this was actually a new song that was going to be on a soundtrack. And myself here, 11 years old, AC/DC and like Metallica were like the only bands I listened to. So when this song Big Gun came out, I was just like, man, this is awesome. Schwarzenegger's in the music video, but you go deeper into the soundtrack, and honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. Alice in Chains, the second track, What the Hell Have I, is not only one of my favorite tracks by Alice in Chains, but just my overall favorite track of all time. The song is really, really heavy. It's awesome. Megadeth.
Yeah, the Megadeth song that plays is the Always Angry, I think it's called. It opens up the film, which is awesome. Um, the movie itself is is not that great. I do love the fact that it has Jean-Claude Van Damme in it, but this soundtrack is ridiculous. We have AC/DC, Alice in Chains, you have Def Leppard, Anthrax, Aerosmith's in this soundtrack, Cypress Hill. It's like a mix of like a whole bunch of people. And also Buckethead's on here. I just realized Buckethead's on here. Is this pre KFC Buckethead, Tony?
Yeah, no, it's the Buckethead that we know. Michael Kamen, who actually does the score for the movie, he decides to do a little something with the guitar. But what I was saying real quick was Megadeth still plays Angry Again every tour. They just played Tinley Park about a week and a half ago. Played Angry Again. He tells the story every single time on how actually Schwarzenegger called him up on the phone and said, "We want a song, Dave." And well, Angry Again was the song, but Def Leppard is interesting pick. Anthrax is awesome. Aerosmith, Cypress Hill. I mean, Aerosmith, Cypress Hill, Fishbone is not going to get any more different than that. Tesla, So again, awesome soundtrack. Very, very deep. It was a very successful soundtrack when it came out. Lot of people enjoyed it. Looking up at reviews, most reviews were favorable, 4+ stars. But just loaded with riffs, lots of good riffs, and a mixture of grunge, rock, metal, hip hop. Another good soundtrack in the 90s with just a lot of intersection, and for a movie that just was not as good as the soundtrack.
Yeah, I said that when you dropped off.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, this movie's not as great.
What's funny with that too is that time I'm talking and then you start talking and I'm like, he's never talked over me before. And then I look up and it's like, oh wait, shit, my camera's off. I got to get back on here. But thank you for covering me.
Yeah, I saw you drop off. You froze.
Did a good job. Excellent covering me.
So just some technical difficulties, but it happens.
Yes, thank you.
But yeah, great soundtrack though, Tone. I actually, this film is not horrible. It's not great, but I can see what they were going for.
I like after the fact, going back and rewatching the movie, a long time later that the bad guy is the same guy from, Lord of the not Lord of the Rings, not House of Dragon, Game of Thrones. He's like the head, which is cool. I always like seeing Game of Thrones, and then I go back and watch Last Action Hero. I'm like, that's the king, that's him. I love stuff like that.
I just thought about, since Michael Kamen and Buckethead do the guitar work in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Did they do the Jack Slater when he's like jumping off the roof? Is that them?
You know what? That's very interesting, and that's interesting. And let me, as you're talking here, as we're wrapping up, I can figure that out here. But yeah, I could see that. Yes, because of the guitar and Michael Kamen, it says that most of the guitar is played by Buckethead. With Michael Kamen, it has to be Buckethead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's a pretty cool riff. The scene itself is ridiculous, and what I'm talking about is he tells the kid, "I had to go catch the red eye," and he goes and does like somersaults and parkour off the roof to catch this car.
Oh,
which I thought was hilarious. But this whole like guitar riff plays over this scene. If you haven't seen Last Action Hero, watch it. It's not a great movie, and just tell me what you think about that one scene.
In like episode 1412, when we do the deep Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, we may talk about it deeper.
Yeah, we'll talk about Last Action Hero. Jesus Christ. Okay, this show's coming off the rails again. With that, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for reading our stuff. We do this for fun, and we really appreciate you guys coming in and listen to us blab and talk nonsense about movies and everything else. Be sure to check us out for October. October is both of our favorite months, and Halloween is one of our favorite holidays. Sam's telling us to let it flow. Sam, we can't be like the Ass Cast, man. That's the be sure to check out Sam's Ass Cast.
Great. Always a great time.
On my ass, which it Flo's very, very crazy in that one, which is kind of funny. And then there's a bunch of crazy characters that came on after me. But check those guys out of the all sports scene. But with you guys, thank you so much for listening. And we will catch you next week.
We will catch you next week. And if you can, we will be dropping a really awesome also October shirt and sweatshirt. And it's going to be really, really cool. It is Penguin, who we all love. Sadly, when I went to go watch the Penguin yesterday, I was told it's not till Sunday. That's why I wasn't able to give you my Penguin review. But check out that shirt and sweatshirt. Check out all the other awesome goodies we got.
Yeah, check it out. It's the Penguin Voorhees that we'll be dropping. I'll have a mock up for it next episode, and we'll have like a little announcement for it on the Twitters. So thank you guys so much, and
thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks for listening to the At the Show podcast, a Sadistic Penguin Studios production.
Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?